We're going to be using Nuke's 3D system for building our tile world, so let's take a quick look at how to navigate in 3D. To get to the 3D mode of the viewer, you can either select it here from this pull down, or you can hit Tab while hovering over the viewer, and it will toggle between the 2D mode and the 3D mode. To orbit in the 3D viewer from the default camera here, hold down Alt and the right mouse key, click and drag, and you'll orbit. If you would like to truck up and down, or left and right, and dolly up and down, hold down the Alt key and the left mouse button, and you can truck left and right and up and down. To truck forward, hold down the middle mouse key, middle mouse button, or you can use the middle mouse wheel and roll up and down to zoom in and out. So that's the basics of navigating in the default view, but you can also look through a camera and edit through a camera. So Nuke's behavior is a little bit different when it comes to editing camera. So let's look through a camera here. I'm going to select it from this pull down and we'll go to camera 1. And now I'm going to try to navigate with the camera. I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm just going to try to orbit. So first of all, you'll see in this mode, I'm not orbiting, I'm panning left and right. So it's switched. Now I'm also going to try to truck over to the left, holding down Alt, and truck over to the left. Now you'll see, I'm going to zoom out so you can see, we've moved out of the camera. So if you've worked in other 3D packages, this might be a little bit unintuitive to you. The fact that we've moved out of the camera. In order to edit the camera in Nuke, you have to do some special steps. And I consider this a feature because it means you won't accidentally edit a camera. So let's jump back into the camera by selecting it from the list again. Now we're looking through it again. To edit the camera, you use this button to the right of it here that looks like a little camera. If you click it with no modifier, it will turn red. Now when we try to edit the camera, I'm zooming out using the mouse wheel. You'll notice that it really only looks like we're zooming out in 2D. What this control has done is lock the view to the camera's pane or its field of view. So it's almost now like we're editing it in 2D, but we're looking through this in the 3D view. You'll notice that I can't dolly or zoom in and out in the camera itself. I'm only moving it along this plane. And this is useful in certain situations when you want to lock, especially for image-based modeling and things, when you want to lock the camera down. The other mode that you can put it into is by holding down Control and clicking, and it will turn green. Now we are able to edit the camera interactively by looking through it. So I'm going to hold down Alt and right mouse button, and I'm panning left and right. You'll see it doesn't orbit in this mode, it pans. The left mouse button and Alt will truck left and right and pedestal up and down, similar to how it does in the default camera mode. And then the middle mouse button will move the camera along the Z. It'll truck it out along the Z, or dolly it out along the Z. So that's how you edit the camera in Nuke. This button here is the GL lighting mode, so you can turn on GL lighting in the scene. And this menu here are the select modes for the 3D viewer. And these will become more important as we do more advanced 3D work in the viewer. We don't really need to change it from the default of node selection. So let's look at editing objects in the 3D viewport. I'm going to jump out to the default view. I'm going to hit F to frame this cube. And you'll see when the cube is selected, the gnomon for editing it becomes active. If you grab the handles, you can move it along the X, Y, and Z, constrained. If you hold down Control, that will show the rotation widget. And if you hold down Control and Shift, you'll see the scale controls. You can scale it along one axis or uniformly by clicking the yellow cube in the middle. If you hold down Control and Alt, you can edit the center position of the pivot, or the pivot points offset in the object. So if you wanted to move it, say, to the bottom of an object, and then the object will then transform around that pivot. You can also edit primitives directly by clicking on their vertices, or the control points here. They're really not the vertices of the geometry generated. These are the control points for the cube primitive. So you can edit it interactively this way instead of having to type the values into the cube primitive knobs there. So those are the basics of navigating in 3D in Nuke and editing the primitives. We'll learn more about the model builder and more advanced ways of editing geometry in the 3D viewport, but for a lot of work in Nuke, just using primitives and the 3D camera and projections is more than sufficient to get the job done. So this will get you started.